standard. Welcome everybody. Welcome back to NEPA Tech. It's great to have you all here. As always, we're going to start with our feature presentation, and then we're going to have a Q&A session for however long it needs to go. Then after Q&A, we're going to have what we playfully call beer time, which is where we head over to the backyard ale house and we continue the conversation and eat food and drink beer. I highly recommend coming to that. It's where all the fun happens. And if you haven't already, please do sign in. It helps convince other people and organizations that we're cool. Hashtag NEPATech, tweet. I'm going to invite now Jason Washoe to come up here and give us an update on the Boys and Girls Club website project.
I'll be talking about developing a healthy relationship with technology tonight.
Go for it.
I'll try.
You'll probably do a better job.
So last month, a lot of you are new here. I recognize a lot of new faces here. A lot of you were also here last month. So last month's presentation was our NEPA Tech group. We want to get all the programmers and all the different types of skill sets together to create a new website for the Boys and Girls Club of Northeast PA. It's a cool project, and we all have been talking for a long time about like working together on something. So since that meeting, I think we had 13 people sign up.
Yep.
So first of all, thank you very much. That's awesome. Anybody who's new that wants to participate, talk to John or I after this. A lot of different things that we could work on together to help bring a new website for them. But anyway, 13 people signed up, and since then, Mandy, thank you very much for taking the first step into creating what's called a questionnaire for the Boys and Girls Club. So my wife, Amy, and I are going to be meeting with the executive director, Trisha Thomas, on May 10th. Is that the date? I forget the exact date, but it's after their golf tournament. They're going through a major golf tournament right now, and we don't want to distract them with too many things. So right after their tournament, we're going to meet with them. We're going to go over that questionnaire. I'm going to throw a bunch more on there, get that filled out, and then based on that, we're going to determine what our next steps are. So thank you for this opportunity to give an update. I'm going to maybe steal 2 minutes of every one of these just to kind of keep the ball rolling with this. And again, thank you for participating with it.
Thank you, Tracy. And now I'm going to invite one other person up here, Brent Pennington. He's looking for a professional with a very particular type of experience.
Say, steal 2 minutes of time too. At work, we've encountered a situation. We've got an absolutely ancient access database for the front end that our staff has decided they are hell-bent on having to continue to use. Unfortunately, it's no longer compatible with anything, Windows, Office, the works. So I'm just wondering if anyone here, has some skills in doing access database programming, would be interested in maybe rebuilding a front end, or something more modern is a better alternative to it. I can certainly get some more details later on. If you're interested, grab me at the end. We can talk for a minute. Hoping we could throw a couple of bucks at this since it is, a work project. So if you're interested, let me know.
So yeah, definitely keep Brent in mind if you have that expertise. I saw Jeff just raise his hand. I thought you might.
Single server DPA, part of my repertoire.
Right. All right, so thank you, Brent. Thanks. All right, so today we have with us Dr. Joseph Ceci. Dr. Ceci will be speaking with us about the current literature on technology and its relationship with mental health. And Dr. Ceci's rap sheet, which ascertains his expertise. Dr. Ceci is a full-time instructor of psychology and human services at Lackawanna College, adjunct professor of graduate counseling at Gwynedd Mercy University, adjunct professor of graduate counseling at Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine and Family, education co-chair at North American Society of Algerian Psychology, former head of customer retention and development consultant at Front Rush LLC.
Right.
In a nutshell, we're very lucky to have Dr. Joseph Ceci here with us today, and I'm going to pass it on over to him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Before I kind of introduce, I know some of you, but why don't come with you? I know a lot of people do introductions, but let me get to know some of you I don't know, so if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Do you want to start, or
Sure.
Start over here? We can start over here.
Great.
I'm
Jeremy Brown.
There we go.
What's going on? We met last time, we talked briefly.
Right.
I was more on the other side of the table.
Okay.
right now I'm finishing up a degree at Penn State. I do graphic and web design. I'm potentially looking at getting a job in this building, doing video marketing and production. Who's next?
Yeah,
Want to go around the table?
Vanna?
Sure. I'm Tony. I'm just interested in technology and psychology, philosophy. So.
Yeah, if you could let me know maybe what you're looking to get out of this too, that'd be cool.
Rosemary McWigan, I'm Maureen, I came
All right,
because
that's
more
all.
than
That's
that.
enough. That's enough resume right
So
there.
define yourself.
Good work.
The interest is in, again, psychology,
Okay.
with the technology.
I'm Maureen McWigan, I'm Mr. Beauty, so I enjoy coming. I actually work in the arts and culture department, so, but I'm always trying to educate myself and meet people. And actually, careful, because I might rope you into something. I had Joe as a panelist recently. He was fabulous.
Working is why we're here.
Yeah.
I'm Vanna. I'm a senior web designer at NetDriven. Just really enjoy coming to these things and learning new things.
I'm Megan Milchar. This is my first NEPA tech
Oh.
meetup. I'm Ted's wife, but I'm also friends with you, so what am I hoping to get out of this? I'd like to see a different side of you.
All right. Yeah.
I'm Ted Milchar.
Yeah.
I've been here before, but I just like to come to socialize because I work from home.
Jeff Galley, currently full stack web application developer, also with BBA, SA, network administrator. Too many things to go over in a too short time.
Not a problem. Thanks.
I'm Brent Pennington. I'm part of the IT department over at the diocese, and I probably have an unhealthy relationship with technology, so.
I'm Mandy Pennington, and I'm the Director of Internet Marketing at NetDriven, and I think the brain is really cool. So.
All right. Me too.
I'm Chris Rogers. I'm a freelance marketing professional, and just they brought me into one NEPA tech group, and I can't get out now. So.
That's how it works, right?
I'm Jason Washoe, and I'm also speaking on behalf of my wife who just left because my daughter is sick at dance. So I'm the lucky one who gets to stay. Amy's a professor at Marywood University. I'm owner of chief architect at Show Technology Solutions on this floor here, software development. Been NEPA Tech since the very beginning, right? With Ted and Chris and John here, and love this group and glad to see all these new faces and existing faces.
I'm Jeff. I dabble in web design and illustration and writing. It's a lot of fun.
And I guess I'm last, right? I'm Chris, I'm a professor at Lackawanna College and the Director of Disability Services, so this is right up my alley. I feel out of my element because I'm not tech savvy, so I'm gonna listen to everything that you guys say.
No,
Pay
no,
attention.
that's great. No, this is awesome. That's what I'm hoping for. We have a mix of kind of both sides of it, which is exactly what it is. So hopefully everybody can kind of help each other with both kind of perspectives. But yeah, again, my name's Joe. That's kind of how I got into this. I guess when I was working through my master's in counseling, I started working for a software company. And I was working for basically client retention. So like I got into the kind of the social science aspect of working for a software company. And I actually ended up becoming more of a consultant for like developers and bettering the product for like the end users and like things like that. And I started doing research. I did a pilot study on Facebook use with regards to depression specifically. And I found some interesting findings is kind of what I wanted to keep doing in terms of that. So tonight, basically I just wanted to go over kind of the current literature that's out there. I know, again, this isn't like the academic side of things, but I wanted to throw some things in there. Reason being is this kind of came as a model for counselors and parents and educators that I've kind of developed into for just adults, kind of like self-care and things like that. And I know this is a little bit more informal, so I'll keep the academic stuff, try to skate past it to a minimum, but it's important because what the research is out there, I think is really kind of important. And then some of you who know me know you can't escape getting some type of education in that being psychology. And so, but I think it lends itself to being a really good kind of way to view this relationship that we have with technology based on the research. and I'll talk about some of that. And then I'll share kind of what I've developed and kind of ways you can do it for yourself, as well as we have parents in here, right? I know we have 2 at least, right? With kids, with technology, educators in the classroom and things like that, and ways you can kind of help with that. So that's kind of my goal, and then I know I got some things from you, so that's hopefully what we can get through. So I guess let's just jump into it. I'll try to keep this stuff quick, but a few fun facts that I found. Like 3.8 billion people, this is the segment of the presentation I like to call reading, because I can't remember all of these. So over 3.8 billion people use the internet each day, 40% of the population. 8 billion devices will be connected to the internet by 2020. 3.5 billion searches per day on Google. I think this is my favorite one. Every minute, 24 hours of video is uploaded to YouTube. More video content is uploaded to YouTube in a 60-day period than the 3 major US television networks created in 60 years. So I'll skip 500 million tweets are sent per day, but essentially we kind of know all this, right? People are using devices, technology, social media, and things like that. Again, 73% of US adults are on YouTube every day, 68% on Facebook. This is daily logins. I think the number between multiple, 2 or possibly 3 is somewhere between 45 and 50% of people use at least multiple. So again, we know people are using this. This isn't new information that is coming. But let's look at kind of things. So I want to get, well, before I go in here, let's open it up to you. I mean, when you think about mental health and technology, let's stay with the negative side of things. What do you see out there right now that are kind of like negative aspects of use of technology or anything else with regards to
I
mental
talked
health?
to a university professor that said marketing is very difficult when you use a phone because they can't read the expressions they're trying to sell you.
Right. Well, nonverbals, right?
Yeah.
Because like as
And
human
that's it.
beings, when we're in a conversation, we need like read receipts, basically, right? And when you're online, you don't exactly get those nonverbal cues of like
Right.
when someone's done, right? You get stuck in kind of like, okay, are they just not responding, right? Or are they turning around, right? Yeah. What else?
Like addiction?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely seeing a problem with addiction. I don't think the tool is any different than any other addiction, but of course, anything's going to get taken advantage of.
Kind of a lighter version of that though, like I'm sure like everybody else, like I get hung up on that, just like, you know, checking for updates sort of stuff, like we're like, should be doing something productive, but it's
Well,
like,
right.
let me see what's new on Twitter instead, like just
Well,
like,
yeah.
break out of.
Right. Absolutely.
I also think, I mean, for me, if you cultivate your friend list very carefully, particularly on Facebook, you end up with sort of an echo chamber of just your own thoughts and beliefs, which you don't normally get in everyday
Sure.
life because people don't walk around with big signs with like all of their beliefs and
Right.
opinions on them, but they are happy to put them on Facebook.
Which
all
is
the time.
interesting, right? Because the internet and like that connectivity should be expanding, and for the most part is, but like that Facebook is kind of like that editor, that bubble version, right?
Electronic communication's painful.
Painful?
Yeah.
In what way?
If you try tracking so many things, you're buried under an avalanche, and when you try conveying information, the tone is near impossible
Right.
to get correct.
Right.
You're either too terse, so it comes off formal and angry, or too verbose, and it winds up making eyes glaze over.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. And that's kind of very similar to the same thing. Is the nonverbals. How much? I mean, some of us know how much of communication is verbal language. 7%. 7%. 7%. Something like that.
I would say that it's cut down a lot on social, even though everyone's social online,
Right.
they're not social when they're sitting in a room together.
Right.
When
Right.
I walk into my classroom, everyone's on their phone. Nobody is talking.
Right.
At
Right.
all.
Absolutely.
Like not even looking at each other,
Mhm.
you know? So, yeah.
Another thing was to
Sure.
change his brainwaves.
Mhm.
And they're studying older teenagers
Yeah.
before college, brainwave changes
Mhm.
with overuse.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I think this might not be an obvious one, but I read some, like the loss of boredom. You know, it's great to,
Right.
I love reading
Creativity.
Twitter, but at the same time, if I'm in a doctor's office, I'm not, that's when you're so kind of like,
Right.
I think we're losing.
Yeah. Kids need to be bored, right? So they become creative.
Well,
Imaginary games, things like that. Yeah. So some of it, yeah. Someone else had their hand up.
They're
I don't know.
or
I'll get
decline
back to you,
in
Megan.
attention span.
Attention span. Yeah.
Well, I think we're seeing accidents, like car accidents and things like that.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Distractions, right? I think it kind of comes to the
Yeah.
distractions. Yeah.
People tend to only put like their best lives on Facebook and YouTube,
Sure.
Instagram and Pinterest,
Um,
and it can hide, or it can portray that everybody else has their shit.
I wanna
together, so
come
it's
back to
like,
that.
I'm the only one who does it.
Right, I wanna come back to that.
Yeah.
I wanna keep that in, I could say something now, but I wanna come back to that
Yeah.
point. It's a good point, but, and I'll circle around.
Well, maybe I'll talk about this, but like the evilness that comes out of people.
Well, right. So like the anonymity, yeah, and from the research, I picked out a few things, like I said, I didn't try to overwhelm everyone. So like, again, I even went back to date, like to 2007, because here there's some focus on devices, not just social media use, which I think is important. And kind of a lot of what you said, heavy use is found to have depressive symptoms in most men. People consistently, constantly connected to their phones or having issues with mental health. And again, both heavy computer use and heavy mobile phone use, both together, again. But the big thing here is heavy use. And I want to stress, like what we're talking about is overuse, heavy use, not necessarily just like normal day-to-day use. These people were using it on average higher than the normal person on a day-to-day basis.
What's the normal, 4 hours?
I mean, and I think just in terms of the average for the subjects in this study. So like
okay.
above the average of the subjects in this study, because again, normal would be subjective. We have a lot of people who are connected to a computer all day long as means of their jobs, right? So I think in terms of that stuff, but in terms of this study, the average of the people there, the ones that were heavier users were showing a statistically significant kind of response to mental health. Then again, I'm trying not to be super overly academic with some of this stuff. Again, heavy use resulted in negative affect to mental health. Again, Facebook predicts decline in subjective well-being. And again, this is a good thing because what they actually looked at in here is the behaviors of people. They saw very like kind of narcissistic posts, posts that were a little out of sorts leading to suicidal ideation. And I think that's important. It wasn't Facebook usage itself, it was specifically the messages being posted that you could actually predict somebody's potential for suicide or other mental health issues based on behaviors. And then this is the big one, what Megan brought up, the social comparison, right? So specifically with women and body image, although I don't think it's different for men either, although I didn't find any specific research, women with body image, but it's about, again, it's not necessarily being on Facebook here, but specifically looking at other people's profiles and the comparison of body image, the ideal body image versus reality. And again, I think someone kind of brought this up, or maybe it was a conversation we were having. They found that heavy users are actually experiencing the same withdrawal symptoms of substance use users. So very similar to addiction. Someone brought up addiction over here. They're actually experiencing withdrawal symptoms when it's being removed from them. And at-risk youth, internet usage led to higher conduct issues and ADHD symptoms. However, those students experienced less depressive symptoms on the days where they were allowed to use their devices in class. The days where they were kind of restricted use is when you were seeing higher levels of ADHD and higher levels of conduct disorder, which kind of goes with the withdrawal symptoms, almost being a product of the withdrawal rather than the connection. Specific with when they were reduced in the depressive symptoms, it was because they were able to text friends. They were able to communicate and text friends and actually connect to other people, which again is another valuable kind of thing. So, well yeah, let's switch it over. But what about all the good things? I know we have people that work with tech and devices and all this stuff today. What are some of the positive ways that technology is helping us?
Learning.
Right, education, right? You now have an access to information, especially with lower SES, lower socioeconomic status. Individuals now have access to information that they could only pay for in the past. Absolutely. So it's expanding their awareness. Although it might kind of close your bubble, it's also giving people in NEPA a chance to find out what's going on in, like, what's up?
I was just gonna say, I love to travel, so yeah. You can,
Right, yeah, absolutely.
You could
Oh,
find
yeah.
somebody in Turkey and
Sure.
keep in touch with them.
Right, and know what culture's like in Turkey from a person who is actually from Turkey rather than just reading in a book or reading on a website. Right, what else? Great, thank you.
I wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, my daughter's at dance, so if these phones didn't exist, then I'd probably be over there waiting for her to get out
Absolutely.
instead of having the contact, so.
I think us being here is a product of the networking
Yeah.
positivity.
Network connection.
But
Absolutely.
Even apart from that, you can, like I've been in parts of groups and like I like to join like little sort of art, what would you call them? That's how I share all of my animations anyway.
Right.
Is I just find like a group of people who like a particular type of thing and I share with that group.
we're far more productive at work.
Yeah, definitely.
We're doing like 40 hours worth of work in about half the time or less.
Right, sure, absolutely. Yeah, what's the purpose of technology from the invention of the wheel or even fire, right? Make our jobs easier, right?
I can
So,
work remotely and not have to live in the awful Silicon
Absolutely.
Valley.
There you go. Great. Yeah. Great. Awesome. So I know like time. I'm gonna move on. So again, connection is one of the primary behaviors that people are using online, like by far overarching. And what you'll see is actually really good. And this is really funny. So a little bit older. This is actually one of the studies that got me really interested in this. At Cornell University, they did a mirror study with Facebook and mirrors. And this is why I was going to bring it back with the comparison. What they found is that people were having higher levels of self-esteem by staring at Facebook over staring at a mirror. But what they were allowed to stare at in Facebook was their own profile only. So it was all positive reinforcement, positive information coming back, which many of us, when we look in a mirror, what are we doing? How many things do we find wrong in the mirror in the morning, right? You're just totally in yourself. It actually found that it increased, again, so it actually is depending on what they're doing on it. If they're comparing themselves to ideal images of others, trips, behaviors, things like that, you're seeing negative. But if you're seeing them stare at themselves and getting positive strength-based reinforcement, you're actually seeing positive outcomes with regards to mental health. And I think that's really important. LGBTQ+, for those of you who aren't in the industry, is kind of the new acronym for all the LGBTQ, all the sexual minority. It's gender, sex, sexuality, expansive. So it kind of encompasses everything. What they actually found, again, this is a little confusing, using social media for identity development and become dependent against addicted. We're showing signs of mental health issues. However, it was kind of mitigated or reduced when they were actually receiving support. So again, it's kind of important. Some of me wants to interpret that they're probably not getting a lot of identity development and support from home, searching for it online, and when they're getting the support online, it's positive. When they're not, and they're comparing and kind of isolating themselves even more. And again, that's just one interpretation. Technology-based treatments was preferred by military. Psychotherapy was found to be as effective as face-to-faces, and actually in some cases better. People were actually a little bit more apt, especially men. Military were more receptive and would talk to a counselor online versus face-to-face. Men are really difficult in the counseling field. And then a review of the literature on social media, and I love this one too, participation in political and civil life. Again, they did a meta-analysis of all the research on the connection between this and getting involved in the community. And 80% of the studies found that more people that are connecting online are actually getting involved in political and civic life. 50% of those studies, or a little bit more than half, are actually statistically significant. For my academics here, that's good. But again, what does this all mean? Again, quick review and random comments. Negative, addiction, again, bullying, harassment. The negativity, the comparison stuff is huge. Comparing to others is big. Self-esteem and identity, which you'll see is funny, because then positive connection, I also have self-esteem and identity. Again, what you'll see in a second, perspectives, empathy, being able to connect to people from Turkey all over, and then promote positive change, as we see with psychological treatment being as effective, if not in some cases better. So we have all this stuff, right? So what does it all mean? And I think this is where Adler, it lends a great voice to that. And the biggest reason being is Adler's psychology, which is different from Freud. Freud looked at all behavior coming from what? Or what? Sex, the libido, right? But it's all about sex, right? And Adler was very different from that. He was looked at behavior as being purposeful, goal-driven. The word is actually teleological, so I get to throw some big words. But behavior is purposeful. Essentially, we don't do things because we're driven by like sexual drives or libido or other drives, if you're doing psychoanalysis or anything like that. We're actually trying to attain goals. There's a purpose to our behavior. I'm trying to get to that. So when we are healthy and mentally healthy, we work together, we cooperate, right? But so when we kind of work and do things against the norm, right? So if you're looking at purposefulness of behavior, you're looking at it kind of, if you do it, you're doing it with others. If you're doing it, you're kind of doing misbehaviors, which I'm gonna not use that word in a second, are selfish, right? Things that are selfish versus things that are for the community. But behavior is purposeful. That's huge and kind of important, looking at the behavior of the individual. So when you're talking about developing a healthy relationship with technology, start looking at your behaviors, right? Not just usage. We hear all these things with like screen time, and like especially with kids and stuff, but it's not necessarily how much, it's what, right? It's the purpose they're using it for. Why is the kid playing Fortnite for 4 hours and not coming to dinner or not doing his homework? What's the purpose there? And when that kind of comes here, is that Adler talks about not only behavior being purposeful, but the fact that there's 4 essential psychological needs. Some of you who may be familiar with Maslow may see some of this. It's actually like predates Maslow, and Maslow's hierarchy is somewhat related to, if not borrowed and taken from these needs, and just adds physiological. We all need the feeling to belong. We all need to feel that we can accomplish tasks. We all need to feel that we matter, and we all need encouragement, and not praise. I'm going to talk about that more in a second, with encouragement and not praise. When we have these needs met, we're feeling pretty good. Anxiety, depression's low, mentally healthy, all those things are good. When we don't, we start behaving in selfish ways. With, remember, purpose. The purpose, if they're being met, would be for the betterment of all. When they're not being met or they're missing, we start acting to get them met, right? So if you're not feeling that you belong, how might you act using technology or on social media? If you're trying to connect in a negative way, or trying to get noticed, per se.
These hate groups that are open?
Yeah, well, well, attention, right? So let me kind of go to there. So these are the what Dreikers refers to as the short-range goals of misbehavior. So short-range goals of mistaken behavior. I'm sorry, I'll get nailed for that by some people. So many of you don't. Yeah, people I know will yell at me for that. But when we don't get these met, we're acting out of attention, power, revenge, or avoidance, right? And we can all see these in behaviors of ourselves or others. When you're not feeling that you belong, right? You do things for attention. Look at me, right? When you're not feeling that you're capable or like you can accomplish certain tasks, right? You're gonna try to show like I'm strong. Like it's kind of overcoming. I'm gonna show you I'm powerful. I can do it, right? Or you can't make me is often the power struggle, especially with kids. You can't make me, right? I think our parents know that one all too well. Revenge. I knew you were against me. No one really likes me. I'll show you how it feels, right? So I'm hurt, I'm gonna make sure that you're hurt so you can feel it. And avoidance, which would probably be the worst, is just not doing it, right? I'm not gonna do that, I'm not gonna try that, because if I don't try it, you'll never see me possibly fail, right? So I just won't do it at all, right? If I'm not good at math, I'm just not gonna do my math homework that night, right? So if you don't see me do it, you won't see me fail at it. So when you're not having them met, you start to act with these kind of behaviors. Now to make this simple, my predecessor created this model called the crucial C's, which simplifies all of that, which was real quick, to connect, capable, count, and courage. And it's for parents and educators, really, to kind of instill these needs in positive ways with their students and children, right? Find positive ways to connect. Find positive ways to show your child that they're capable and that they can be significant and matter and count, and also that they have courage. And courage is resiliency, right? We're gonna fail a lot in this world, but it's more about bouncing back, right? Bouncing back, and that's really what courage is. So, when you have those needs met, we act with what's called community feeling, or this big, giant, long German word, Gemeinschaftsgefühl. In class, I'll usually write it on the board because I like to show off that I can actually spell it. And I can't spell English words. So this is kind of, I would say, in a different way, in a kind of a simple form, the antithesis of acting selfishly. And this is also, Adler believed this was an innate potentiality in all people that can be nurtured, and it needs to be nurtured. And it's not altruism. I think some people are confused with altruism of putting the needs of yourself, or the needs of others above yourself, because self-interest can be involved in this, right? It's about connection between even past, present, and future humankind. We all need each other, right? All problems are social problems. You can't exist in a vacuum, right? We need others to survive as human beings, right? And so when you're getting those 4 essential needs met, you're doing it. What it means for technology, though, is really the purposefulness of behavior and focusing on that positive aspects, right? So when it comes to yourself, The first one is to develop your lifestyle. I put the technological lifestyle, but not everybody's the same, right? Some of you are really high level users, right? That you need it for work, you do it all the day, it works for you. Some of you don't. It's gotta be your, everyone's like, oh, balance, 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 but it's gotta be your lifestyle, right? And like, again, we talked about with TED, tech is supposed to make your life easier, right? And quicker and efficient and speed things up and help you. If you try something new and it doesn't help speed up the process, it's not necessarily something you have to integrate into your lifestyle, right? It's kind of just knowing what works for you. For instance, like some of you mentioned you may have problems. I have problems with my phone, especially at night. And especially since I'm a teacher, I have students email me at all hours. And one of the things I was having a problem with is checking at night, not going to sleep. I was having sleeping problems, and I had to start putting like turning the notifications off. So every night at 11 now, no matter what I'm doing, when my phone's locked, the notifications are off. And I have to do that in helping with sleep and things like that. Another interesting thing, I guess, that I kind of do is like I'm polite to Alexa. I love this. So I didn't really talk about this, but like one of the things I kind of saw and read in my literature that they didn't share here, the fun stuff, is that we're starting to see kids develop very rude behaviors. Because what are they doing? They're seeing their parents speak to Alexa and just tell me this, tell me that, do that, no thank yous, no pleases, no nothing, right? And I'm going to talk about this in a second, but kind of on the same note of that, what I didn't add in here because I didn't do this for parents and counselors and educators, is a great article in The Atlantic that talks about distracted parenting. And actually screen time for kids, and especially really little kids, it's not necessarily about their screen time, it's about your screen time. It's about parents' screen time. They're seeing you on it, you're not positively connecting with them in the here and now, they're seeing you work like this, they associate those behaviors, and they're starting now crying out for attention. Again, they're not getting positive attention at home, they're gonna start acting and behaving with attention, and they're seeing parents and on phones, that's what they think it means to be an adult. Right? An adult means having a phone attached to me and working 24/7, right? Always being on that thing. And so it's really interesting, and I'll share that with people who are interested afterwards, but it's more important, and it'll come into the model for parents.
Share something I read in Medium recently, not a few weeks ago, where it's an author with an article. He said one of the plagues of technology is every time we make something more efficient, we're basically we try cramming more in. The technology makes it easier, so what do? We do more.
Right.
It's like being on a treadmill and you become a faster runner and you start pushing the money to go up more and more and more.
Right.
It's not that technology's not overwhelming, it's that you're forcing more on yourself to sort of fill in that void.
Sure, right. Yeah, it's almost like a processing and a memory thing, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of very similar for a person, right? Like how much storage do we actually have to like retain information? Yeah, number 2 would be obviously connection. There's all kinds of positive correlations to using this to connect other people, as we heard. And the other one is educate yourself. Learn about new things. Don't just be like, oh, then again, I'm probably talking to a more responsive group, like tech bad. What I'm hearing out in a lot of public and a lot of reasons why we're doing is like tech bad, screen time. Limit this. And in a world where kids are going to have to grow up and use phones, use computers, or probably won't even be phones at that point, use technology, which is kind of why I use that catch-all. Like, and we're kind of not preparing them for that, right? Like, we're not necessarily preparing for even ourselves, but this is for yourself. Again, educate yourself. Like, learn what's not normal, right? Is there a problem? Do I have a problem? I think, and one of the things with connection too, kind of backtracking, because again, I'm trying to speed up because of time. Sorry, man.
Time's no problem.
Right. Like one of the things, like we all think like we're always connected, right? Right? Isn't that kind of like what they say now? Like, oh man, like you can't get away. But is that really true? What is it? I mean, what are we really? I think some people might kind of know. Like, are we really? Are you? Let's think about like the way. How does like a telephone connect, right, to another telephone? Right. Well, but it's who remembers dial-up, right? Right. What would happen when the phone got cut, right? Because it was a constant connection, right? How does networking work now for my people?
Packet switching.
Right. So you need like read receipts, basically, right? Nonverbals, things like that. We're not constantly connected, right? It's not. Those are not two continuously connected devices. right? Your phone's not constantly connected. Somebody brought up the anxiety of like just checking things. Like we're constantly like buffering, right? Waiting for the person to respond back to us. And again, I can't take this concept for my own. I want to share a book with you before I leave, called Algorithms to Live By, where he talks a lot. You know this book?
We just read it for Science Book Club.
Okay, so I actually teach a class over at Lackawanna on judgment and decision making, where I've integrated it into my curriculum.
Okay.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and he talks about that, but I love it from the psychological perspective of like very simple, basic computer science stuff, but more applicable to how we make decisions as human beings. So they're very similar, very, very similar.
I'm an offender of this. Whenever I'm messaging with somebody and I start typing something, and then I see those 3 little dots indicating that they're typing something,
Right.
I stop what I'm doing and I wait for that.
Absolutely. Right, because you're waiting, right? You're waiting to get that response to kind of go on, but you're not like we think we're connected. You can put it down. It's all right.
Well, I think it gets really hard to create boundaries too, like
Right.
talking about work and
Right.
like responding to students. I very deliberately do not respond
Right.
to emails after I leave.
Right.
work.
And the
Because the second you start doing that, then everybody expects that you
Absolutely.
do it
Feedback loop,
all the
Right.
time, and then you can't put up that boundary of
Right.
like, no, it's my
Right.
home time.
And what you
now.
end up doing is just that. Go ahead, what were you
Yeah,
saying?
feedback loop.
Right,
Yeah.
you perpetuate the
Constant.
feedback loop, right? So you start perpetuating, I'm gonna answer an email in an hour, so like they know, like I'm expecting an email within an hour,
Mhm.
when is that, and then you kind of feel anxiety about like, oh my God, am I getting back to that person so much? So it's not necessarily like the tech and like the user, it's like essentially what we're doing it for, and we're doing it to ourselves in a way that we look at it just like all bad and kind of separating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then again, the fourth is encourage
So I
positive
have a question
behaviors, right?
regarding that,
Sure.
while we're on the topic. So what about like autoresponders, like I'm busy, I'm driving, does that satisfy that need for the acknowledgement?
I think, well, again, it depends on which perspective you're talking about, like the person putting it on while they drive. Again,
Yeah.
from my perspective, and I guess I kind of skated over this, like, is always look at the reason, the purpose of the behavior, right? Not just, okay, they're always on the phone, they're always on the computer, but what are they doing on the computer, right? What is the purpose of it and why? For that, if you're talking about the driver, what reasons could the driver be doing that? You think they're mostly thinking about the other person? That could be some of it. What else could it be? I mean, I put the notifications on when I go to sleep, right? I mean, the distracted driving is kind of important. I think there could be a lot of different reasons. Because that's the thing, you're saying like, they're worried about the other person kind of you're kind of worried about the other person getting that receipt, right? That acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Because if we don't acknowledge them, we're worried about their feelings, right? It's an interesting dynamic. Like we're worried about whether they're like gonna freak out, oh my God, they didn't message me in like 2 minutes, right? These unreasonable kind of feedback loop kind of things that we have going, right? It's interesting, it's fascinating. But again, look at why, like again, if it's you, again, for yourself in terms of you trying to get a better relationship for yourself, look at why you're doing it. Why are you doing it? What is are you trying to reduce anxiety, right? Like, are you trying to, whatever it might be, right? Are you trying to connect? I'm not saying it's always negative, what the purpose, but if you feel like it's an overuse, and I always look to the short range goals of mistaken behavior. Am I looking for attention? Am I trying to show that I'm capable? Again, with normal healthy behavior, probably not getting into too much of the revenge stuff, but with bullying and cyberbullying, you're definitely getting into behaviors of they're being hurt somewhere where they're hurting back, regular bullying. Which again, I'll talk about another thing in a second. Right, and it's about the behavior, or about the purposefulness of the behavior, not necessarily just the tool, right? Getting into the individual, like why they're using it, right? As we get into the discussion, which I want to turn it over to now, this is what I did for parents, educators, clinicians. Again, it's very much the same, but it starts with that distracted parenting. Model behavior, model good behavior, limits, terms, whatever it may be for you. And then connect with your clients' children through technology. I don't think we have some clinicians, we may have some clinicians in here, but use their words, right? Don't just say like, oh man, you're playing that, like, I always go back to Fortnite, like you're playing that Fortnite again, you're playing Apex Legends again, you're playing games, you're doing this, whatever it is. Like ask them about it, use their terminology, like be involved, be interested, right? It doesn't need to dominate their life, but like if you actually show that you're someone interested, connect with them, play games with them, right? It's obviously something that's an important part of their life, right? If they view you looking at it as all bad, like if you're not connecting with them using like FaceTime and things like that, first step, showing them good behaviors, and then learn from them, right? Clients and children, to kind of mix that if you're a clinician or a parent or whatever, but learn from them, right? A lot of the reasons parents of a certain age, and maybe again not in this room, is they're a little scared because of their proficiency, right? Like they're a little inhibited, like again, not as much in this room probably per se, but a lot of parents out there are scared because it's a generation that they're not familiar with that stuff. They didn't have it in the house growing up, so it's scary, bad, limit. And I think that we're gonna get ourselves into a really, really big predicament if we start limiting and not teaching. It's kind of like some of us in the social sciences, right? Like what are they saying now today about like the whole school thing of like stranger danger? Right? Like used to tell kids don't go near anyone, right? And then what happened is like they don't learn social skills, how to interact with other people. Now they're teaching them how to identify strangers that are possibly and potentially predators. Understanding a good social situation so you know the person to find the help and the person to stay away from it. It's kind of the same here. Limit screen time, bad. You develop kind of a relationship with it from a kid's point of view that they don't understand what's good to use it for and what's bad to use it for, and then they become Instagram models, right? All right. I tried to do that really fast. I'm really sorry. I know we're probably like way over time, but like, and I know a lot of you asked questions, but we have some time, right?
It was definitely a good discussion. Yes, we definitely have time for Q&A. It'll last however long people want to talk.
I think a lot of people brought things up.
Well, you know what might help, learn from your children. Big brothers, sisters, I worked with this, she was 11. And she showed me what the kids were saying about her in class. It was awful.
Right.
Awful.
And yeah, and
what they said. And she's a little chunky, and they made fun of her. She wanted to be a dancer, and they made fun of that. And I thought, where do you start?
Right. And I think this part is encouraging the positive behavior, and I actually, I don't know if this isn't a term yet. I haven't seen it anywhere, and especially in the Adlerian field, so I'm going to claim it now. Can that count as like trademarking? Is kind of the antithesis or the opposite of cyberbullying, which is cyber encouragement. And encouragement in Adlerian perspective is not praise. So for instance, like if like you're not praising that, it's about process over product.
I think It Gets Better would be a good example of that. The It Gets Better campaign.
I don't know what that is specifically, but okay.
Yeah.
The one thing that I got.
Oh yeah, now I know what it is. Yeah.
The one thing that I got to add to this is that the one thing that's never brought up that absolutely needs to be brought up is you need to teach people when to get away from the keyboard.
Right. Well, that's
I'm guilty of it too.
Well, that's again, and that's what I think that's again going back to, and I think that's with a parenting perspective, modeling good behavior from an individual perspective, developing your lifestyle, knowing when you have to set your limits and turning it off. Right.
Well, not even just that. If you're frustrated, they're insulting you, whatever.
Sure.
Don't respond. Just get up,
Well,
go take a walk.
Right. Yeah. With this question, I think
time to push
again,
it away.
11, you can start to educate them on that behaviors. But I think what's important for them, again, is show them encouragement. Right. Give them encouragement there. Reinforce like that, but and even do it online. Right. So like, if you're friends with her on Facebook, again, if they're parents, start posting positive things on their self-image, kind of, again, showing them that there's things out there. And even in person, face-to-face, you don't have to just do it online. And that's kind of why I was like saying encouraging positive behaviors, even like the cyber encouragement, right? Yeah. Moving it to that social media platform so they're not all flooded with negativity. That they have that positivity in there, because we saw that there actually can be a lot of good benefit to self-esteem when there's positive reinforcement on their page. Right? So if we start to replace or to kind of, if we get a group of people and friends and other people and parents and others to kind of start encouraging that girl instead of kind of like just kind of where it's all negative, starting to include some positive.
I would say there's two areas that I'm faced with a lot. One of the areas is that there's a lot of students that'll post their frustration,
right.
Post like when they're really happy, when they're really sad, and then a lot of us will see that in the education world. And then we don't know how to respond. Like, are they seriously going to do some of the things that they say, or are they just doing it for attention?
Right, so that's again, you gotta look at the purposefulness of the behavior, right? If you're talking with in terms of cries for help, the attention is different from where you're talking about suicidal ideation in terms of which would probably be more closer to avoidance, right? Total withdrawal, or what Adler would call like completely discouraged. Again, that's why it's always about encouragement.
And then the other point that I wanted to make, and without sharing too much information, but I have students with, you know, that are on the spectrum, okay, as far as autism. So they don't know how to socially respond to somebody. Like, for example, you know, you're not supposed to compliment someone's body part because that would be a problem. And when they do that, then you have to really have that discussion with them and say how that's inappropriate. Because they may not do that in person, but when they're online, the whole social aspect for someone that has autism is pretty brutal.
Right, well, because what's the one biggest things with students?
They're telling the truth.
Right, but one
But
thing
it's
because
inappropriate.
what's the one biggest issue with students on the spectrum? They can't, like, they have.
They can't gauge social
Right, they
cues.
can't read cues, so
Right.
online, there
It's
aren't
even
any,
worse
right,
than
and it just
cues.
exacerbates the
Yeah,
situation.
exactly,
But on
exactly.
the other side, so my sister's disabled, she's deaf, been deaf since birth, and we were born in the 80s when there wasn't the internet and all this technology, and it has been an incredible positive
Right.
in her life. Like,
Absolutely.
our ability to communicate, we FaceTime all the time, whereas before it was a TTY, very impersonal, right? Where you couldn't at all ever figure out if what they were trying to say was a positive, a negative, or snarky, or sarcastic, or whatever it is, and now we can have conversations as fast as a verbal conversation with all of the things that we need to understand each other, and like her life and the life of people like her have gotten infinitely expansive and better because of technology. And like, so sometimes when we talk about, I think, you know, oh, limit this, limit that, like we tend to leave out the people for whom
I think so.
technology has been and needs to continue to be expansive.
Yeah, and like I said, I think so, and that's a lot of the reasons why I wanted to do this, because I think that we're like, it's almost like scare tactics, right? It's like, it's weird, it's weird.
If you're like the only trans kid in your tiny little
Right.
town,
Yeah.
Well, right.
the internet is going
It's
to be
like
a
so
place where you can
isolating.
find.
Look what we
a
found with the
community.
research there, like again, they're going on, they're trying to find out themselves, and I mean, at that age, every youth is trying to find identity in one way or another, right? And if you're getting bullied by students, it's an outlet. So you can see how that can easily turn into an addiction. And again, addiction is very strong with this, but it's no different than anything else, right? And you can get addicted to anything, right? And so again, if you're looking at that, it's really starting to affect your work, social, kind of personal life and relationships and things like that. That is probably a whole nother things where you're probably, again, you're looking at the purposefulness of behavior, probably getting closer to avoidance. Someone that can't socialize at all is, again, just, I'm going to just dive into this thing and avoid all of that social communication altogether. Because that's where they feel capable. That's where they're getting their self-efficacy. Again, looking at why, well, not why, but the purpose of the behavior, right?
We didn't get to finish this conversation, but you said something really, you know, I'm fascinated by all these filters people use.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, so.
And you said something like, well, we all wear masks, we all use
Yeah.
filters, so is that bad
Sure.
per se? Is that the future? I know a lot
So
of
I've read a
people
couple
gaming,
things
you
with
know.
regards to personality, and the kind of the real quick thing is essentially it's a part of you. That personality that's being displayed is part of your personality in whatever way that is, whether it's edited or filtered. And I really don't think we all kind of edit ourselves in public to one extent or another. We, in some ways, edit ourselves to ourselves,
It's
right?
like third degree role play almost.
But when
Yeah.
people change their skin and their neck.
Well, I think that,
it's
right.
I wear makeup.
Right, no,
every day,
and
you know?
listen,
Yeah,
those
I guess
behaviors
you're right.
exist,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
what I
then,
mean, is
again,
it's
right, those
Yeah.
behaviors definitely exist, right? And again, I think it comes back to looking at why, looking at the purpose. Why is that individual doing it, right? What's the purpose for them doing it? Is it attention, right? Is it power, right? That might be some of the bullying too, showing that I'm powerful, right?
Yeah.
Some of the behaviors, right? The posting all the time, like selfies and things like that, just not getting positive attention in their normal everyday social life, seeking it elsewhere, right? Whatever it may be, again, with the
See,
revenge
this goes
thing.
back to what does that phone mean to you? So
Right.
learning who you are.
Right,
And what,
absolutely.
where is your problem? And
Right.
why is it there? That's an awful lot of soul searching that is painful.
Well, for adults, we can do it.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
It's a lot,
And with kids, it's about encouraging positive and modeling and things like that,
Yeah.
right? And instilling those 4 needs, right? Those psychological needs, right?
Yes.
Belonging, self-efficacy,
I
capability.
was curious to return to those needs.
Sure.
Because I feel like I have a recurring loop that is potentially damaging. Parasocial relationships, you know anything about those?
I mean, a little bit, but go ahead.
So it's pretty much the ultimate one-sided relationship where, we had them before technology, but we have them especially now, exponentially, I think because of technology. I don't know the exact numbers. So parasocial relationship is where you have a quote relationship with one person, but they have no idea who you are.
Mhm.
So the classic example would be like a celebrity.
Right.
So you can kind of see where this is going already. Lots of kids have these relationships with YouTube personalities and just people who they've never met. And sometimes for some people that line is blurrier than others.
Mhm.
And I find myself, I don't know, I would say I'm involved with them necessarily, but I do find myself more times than I'm comfortable with. And I don't know, maybe this is more normal than I think. Maybe it's not, maybe it's normal but not in a good way. But I'll just have lunch or dinner by myself, right? Just with a YouTube video. And sometimes I feel like I'm really wanting that to the point where I'm tempted sometimes to turn down going out with somebody.
Mhm.
And it's one time isn't bad, but too many times and it's a pattern, and I don't know, something that scares me a little bit. Maybe not in myself so much, but in how connected people are with online personalities.
Right.
How connected every day, I wake up with a podcast.
Okay.
And I listen to podcasts nonstop. Sometimes I feel too much to where I feel I forget what my own thoughts are,
Okay.
and my own opinions.
Sure. How is that different than reading a book?
Yeah, again, I mean, your
Yeah.
behavior's not different. Again, you're looking underneath it.
But are
It's a
you-
tough
I
thing.
think we all have those,
Right,
Yeah.
we do.
I mean, Game of Thrones is on Sunday night, and
Yeah.
I have spent 3 days
Right.
reading everybody's opinions about the episodes. And in my
Those
head,
people
no
who can see
spoiling.
it.
And in my head, arguing with some of the writers, because I'm no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Taking it too personally, or I think we all have those moments,
Yeah,
but
sure.
you
You have
know.
to adjust I know it's a dial adjustment thing.
Yeah.
There's something.
Well, that's what I'm saying again, right? And back to it.
This is one of those. To me, there's the advanced frontier of it or something. I don't know.
Well, can it lead to negative behaviors?
Right.
Sure.
Again.
Mistaken
Right.
behavior,
Goals, yeah,
People
goals of mistaken
Yeah,
behavior.
you see people taking on oh, they insulted my favorite celebrity, so now I'm gonna dox them, and now
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
go
exactly.
after them and just
That's
inundate their
okay,
Twitter
yeah.
with go kill yourself.
So I've never done anything like that.
Well, here you go. So I didn't get to finish where I wanted actually to. So this also helps with what you're saying too. The Dreikers would always say, it goes to courage or encouragement, but the courage to be imperfect, right? The courage to be imperfect. There's nothing that's 100% in this world, right? And that about resiliency, getting back out there, right? Keeping to do it, and identifying those, and the courage to do it, right? But it's funny what you said about it, normal. Adler would say, the only normal people are the ones you don't know very well, right? So if people think you're normal, they probably don't know you very well. We're all crazy, right? Some way or another. So that's good. But yeah, and I think this plays into everything. Again, kids, us.
I
everything.
tell my kids that there's no such thing as normal.
Right.
It's just it's a nonsense concept, and everybody's different in some way, right?
Right.
And we just
And that's what Adler believes. Other than community feeling. Other than community feeling. The only thing that binds us and keeps us together is the fact that we are social creatures and we need others and we need to cooperate and work together. Other than that, we are all unique. We are all individual, and that's why Adlerian psychology is often called individual psychology. And that's actually a misnomer. It translated from German and actually should be translated literally, I think, and there's some argument over this. Indivisible psychology, meaning you can't separate anybody into parts, a holistic perspective on the person, all their experiences. Even if you have twins, they still have different experiences or a different perspective on an experience that makes them unique in their own. The only thing that binds us and needs to be nurtured and brought out in everybody is community feeling. And I think at the core of it, technology wants to bring us closer together and make this a lot better, make us cooperate, make us work together. And that's if we start again encouraging those behaviors and not just limiting the whole thing overall and avoiding the negative behaviors and really searching at the purposefulness of it, I think we can develop a healthier relationship with yourselves as well as help you with kids and or at least again, this is my models and my thoughts, take with them what you will. But again, rooted in Adlerian, Dreikers, and Bettner and Lou. with the crucial C's, so I need to cite them. Especially since it's being recorded. I'll get yelled at by someone. Maybe.
Quick question. How long has psychology been around?
Well, I mean, as like an actual science, or like in terms of philosophy? 'Cause like, right, early, like, I mean, you'd probably say 1900s, early 1900s. In terms of Freud, was probably Freud, Adler, and Jung are considered the big three. You're talking in the early 1900s, late 1800s there when they started meeting. Even Watson and Skinner too, with observable behavior and behaviorism. That's kind of what they say. Usually they say the big three are Adler, Freud, and Jung, and that's why a lot of people confuse Adler as being neo-Freudian when that's kind of a misnomer, because very different, especially from the libido to the purposefulness of behavior. That was huge. Like, Freud wasn't happy about that.
A lot of philosophy is a lot of psychology.
Right.
So it's like
Well,
overlapping.
every science was at once a philosophy, right? In essence, it's before it becomes like scientific. It needs to start somewhere. I mean, right? Yeah, astronomy, all chemistry, magic, right? Psychology was magic, right? Demonology. We thought they were invaded by spirits, right? Until we understood the mind. I'm like just kind of bantering now. Until someone else raised their hand, I'm just going to keep talking lower and lower.
So that was a great conclusion. Thank you very much.
But if you take anything away from this, it's this. Stop with the perfectionism, right? You're driving yourself nuts. The comparison stuff online, it's about cooperation and social interest and the courage to be imperfect. Thank you.
Dr. Joseph Cece, thank you. That was incredible. All right, so what happens next is we usually, those of us who are interested, we go to what we playfully call beer time over at the Backyard Ale House on Linden Street next to the Square of Scranton. If you haven't signed in yet, please do so over there on the sheet. And this is where we usually hang out for another 10 minutes or so, and eventually somebody starts to train over to Backyard Ale House. One time I actually left to bring stuff back to my office, and everyone was gone. It was the best.
They did it on purpose.